What if a single, desperate plea in the dead of night could shatter your world and force you to confront a past you thought buried forever? The torrential rain lashed against the sleek, obsidian windows of the luxury sedan, blurring the already desolate urban landscape. Inside, Elias Thorne, a titan of industry with a net worth that dwarfed small nations, sat in frigid silence, trying to outrun the echoes of a brutal business call from Tokyo. He was utterly alone, adrift in his own carefully constructed isolation. Then, a frantic pounding ripped through the downpour. A woman, drenched and shivering, was desperately hammering on his window. A tiny, bundled form clutched to her chest. Her face, a mask of raw terror, was etched with an urgency that sent a shiver down Elias's spine, cutting through his detached composure. "Please help me. My baby is burning up with fever," Clara Sanchez cried, her voice raw and desperate, barely audible over the storm's fury. Elias's brow furrowed. Another beggar? He thought, his hand hovering over the window button, ready to dismiss her. He barely cracked the window, a sliver of cool air mixing with the humid despair outside. "What do you want?" His voice was cold, sharper than the biting wind. Clara pulled back a corner of the blanket, revealing the flushed, tiny face of her 8-month-old son, Leo. His breath was shallow, ragged. "My son is very sick. I need to get to the hospital, but no taxi will come in this storm." Her voice cracked, tears mingling with the rain on her cheeks. Just hours earlier, Clara had been deep in a dreamless sleep after a grueling double shift at the textile factory. Leo's faint whimper had jolted her awake. At first, she thought he was hungry, but when she touched him, his skin was blazing. The thermometer screamed 103.1 degrees Fahrenheit, 39.5 degrees Celsius, and her baby boy could barely open his eyes. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she fumbled for her phone. The ride-sharing app showed a meager $20. She requested a car, but 5 agonizing minutes later, "Ride cancelled," flashed across the screen. Another attempt, same soul-crushing result. The relentless rain drummed against the windows of her small third-floor apartment in a building with no elevator. "It's okay, my love. We'll get help," she whispered, wrapping Leo in a light blanket, grabbing a bag with diapers and basic medicine. She flew down the stairs, shielding him as best she could with her own body. The street was deserted, save for that single black car parked outside the convenience store. Without a second thought, she ran towards it. And now, here she was, pleading with a stranger in an expensive suit. Elias scoffed. "I'm not a taxi." But something in the baby's tear-filled eyes, a silent, pleading agony, stopped him from rolling up the window completely. A fleeting, unsettling memory, long suppressed, flickered at the edge of his consciousness. "Which hospital do you need to go to?" he asked, his voice still guarded. "The city general, please," Clara gasped, hope sparking in her eyes. "Is it 15 minutes away?" he pressed. "I'll pay you back when I can, I swear," she pleaded, her voice choked with emotion. Elias glanced at his watch. 3:27 a.m. He should be sleeping in his penthouse, not picking up strangers in the rain. He'd only come out to clear his head after that infuriating business call. "Get in!" he finally snapped, unlocking the doors. Clara scrambled inside, clutching Leo to her chest. The car smelled of fine leather and expensive cologne. Elias pulled away without another word, watching in the rearview mirror as the woman kissed the child's burning forehead. What secrets lie buried in the past, waiting for the most unexpected moment to surface and change everything? The journey to the hospital was a blur of rain and tense silence, broken only by Clara's soft murmurs to her child and the rhythmic swish of the wipers. Elias drove with rigid precision, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He felt a strange unease, a flicker of something unsettling about the woman and her child. This wasn't his problem. He was simply dropping them off and continuing his perfectly ordered life. Yet, he found himself stealing glances in the rearview mirror as Clara tenderly kissed Leo's brow. "What's wrong with him?" he finally asked, the question escaping before he could stop it, cutting through the tense quiet. Very high fever. It won't come down. And he started breathing. Strangely, Clara replied, her voice trembling. She then hesitated, a shadow crossing her face. I was a nurse. Elias accelerated slightly. I know he needs urgent medical attention. The admission, the raw fear in her voice, stirred something within him. It was a fleeting, almost imperceptible tremor, but it was there. This woman, holding her child with such a fierce blend of strength and fragility, seemed disturbingly familiar. "What's your name?" he asked, taking a detour to avoid a flooded street. "Clara," she answered, her gaze never leaving Leo. "And he's Leo," she added softly. "Thank you for helping us. I don't know what I would have done if—" "It's nothing," Elias interrupted, uncomfortable with her gratitude. "I was just there. That's all." The rest of the drive passed in silence. As they pulled up to the emergency entrance, Clara flung open the door before the car even fully stopped. "Thank you so much," she cried, rushing out. "I swear I'll pay you back someday." Elias watched her run towards the hospital doors. Leo clutched tightly to her chest. A knot formed in his throat. He should leave. He'd done enough. But instead of driving away, he switched off the engine and just stared at the entrance where they had vanished. "Just curiosity," he mumbled to himself, stepping out into the now softer rain. "Just want to make sure the child is okay." But deep down, as he walked towards the hospital, Elias felt something more. An inexplicable pull towards this desperate woman who had pounded on his window in the stormy night. Inside, Elias moved hesitantly, lingering in a corner of the emergency room. He watched Clara fill out forms, a nurse taking little Leo for examination. "Do you have medical insurance?" he overheard. "No, but I can pay little by little," Clara replied, her voice barely a whisper. Elias frowned. Her face. Why was it so unsettlingly familiar? Had he seen her before? A doctor quickly approached to examine the baby. Elias caught fragments of their conversation. Dehydration, viral infection, immediate tests. Leo was taken inside by a nurse, with Clara following after signing more papers. Elias was left alone in the waiting room. He should leave. There was no reason to stay, but a strange, unsettling feeling kept him rooted. "Excuse me, are you with the lady who just came in?" a receptionist asked. "Yes," he lied without thinking. "I just brought her. She's an acquaintance. Can you fill out this information? We need additional contact details." Elias took the form and wrote down his number, hesitating for a moment before handing it back. As he did, he saw her full name, Clara Rodriguez. The name ignited something in his memory. Clara Rodriguez. Suddenly, everything clicked, like puzzle pieces he never wanted to complete. This hospital, he murmured to himself, looking around. Of course, he knew it. 3 years ago, his younger brother, Daniel, had died in this very hospital. He was only 25 with a whole life ahead of him. Medical negligence, they'd determined later. Elias had moved heaven and earth to find those responsible, and he remembered perfectly the name of the nurse who was on duty that night. Clara Rodriguez, the same woman he had just helped. Elias shot to his feet. He had to get out of there. He couldn't believe the cruel irony of fate. Of all the people in this enormous city, he had rescued the very person who, he believed, had contributed to his brother's death. But before he could reach the door, he saw Clara collapse into a chair through the glass, her face buried in her hands. She wasn't crying, but her entire body seemed to have lost all strength. He stopped. Something about the image didn't fit the negligent nurse he'd envisioned for years. This was a mother, terrified for her child's health. Slowly, he returned and sat a distance from her. "How's the child?" he asked, his voice neutral. Clara looked up, surprised to see him still there. "He has a serious viral infection," she sighed deeply. "They're giving him 4 fluids and antibiotics. Thank you for staying, but you don't have to. You've done too much already." "How old is he?" Elias asked, ignoring her comment. 8 months, she replied, a small, tired smile appearing on her face. "He's a fighter." Elias nodded slowly. A question burned in his throat, but he didn't dare ask. Would she recognize him? Would she know who he was? Do you work near here? Clara asked, trying to be polite.
No.
Just passing through, he replied curtly. And you? I work in a textile factory now, she said, looking down slightly. I used to be a nurse right here. Elias's heart pounded. So it was her without a doubt. Why did you stop? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Clara's expression shifted subtly. A shadow crossed her face. Things happen, she replied evasively. Sometimes life takes unexpected turns. A doctor appeared at that moment, calling her name. Clara quickly stood up. Leo is responding well to the treatment, the doctor informed her. But he'll need to stay at least 2 days and take specific medication afterward. Here's the list of medicines he'll need. Elias watched Clara take the paper, her expression etched with worry. He didn't need to be a mind reader to know she was calculating costs she probably couldn't cover. Thank you, doctor, she said, putting the list into her damp bag. When the doctor left, Clara turned to Elias. You should go get some rest. It's very late, and you've done more than enough for us. Elias nodded, suddenly unable to meet her gaze. I hope the child recovers quickly, he said as he stood. He left the hospital feeling the weight of a strange guilt. For 3 years, he had harbored hatred for a woman he didn't truly know. A woman who was now fighting alone to raise her sick child. As he drove back to his empty penthouse, Elias couldn't shake the image of Clara holding her baby in the rain. Fate had brought him face to face with his past, and now he didn't know what to do with it. Could the man who shattered your past be the very one destined to help rebuild your future? 2 days later, Clara stood nervously at the hospital's administration desk. Leo had improved dramatically, but now she faced another daunting hurdle. The medical bill. Excuse me, miss, she said, clutching her baby close. I'm here to see if I can get a payment plan for my son's account. The receptionist typed something on her computer, then frowned. Clara Rodriguez, patient Leo Rodriguez. Yes, that's us. Your account is already settled, ma'am, the woman replied casually. What? There must be a mistake. I haven't paid anything yet. It says here it was fully paid this morning, including the take-home medications. The receptionist handed her an envelope. These are the medications and the doctor's instructions. You're free to go. Clara took the envelope with trembling hands. Who could have paid? She had no family in the city, and her few friends were as strapped for cash as she was. Does it say who made the payment? It was anonymous, ma'am. Someone preferred not to give their name. Stepping out of the hospital, Clara looked around, as if expecting to spot her mysterious benefactor. The only face that came to mind was the man from the luxury car. But why would he do something like this for them? That night, as Leo slept peacefully in his crib, Clara recounted what had happened to Maria, her 60-year-old neighbor, who always helped her with the child. I tell you, it was him, that man who brought you to the hospital, Maria insisted, pouring her a hot cup of tea. Who else could it be? It doesn't make sense, Maria. I don't even know his name. Well, find out. If he has enough money to pay hospital bills, he must be someone important. Clara remembered the luxury car, the expensive suit. She picked up her phone and searched, prominent businessmen, New York City. She scrolled through several images until she stopped dead. There he was in a business magazine photo. Elias Thorne, heir to the Thorne Technologies empire. Among the 50 most influential entrepreneurs of the year. Her heart leaped into her throat. Not only did she recognize him from that night, but now she remembered where else she had seen him. 3 years ago when she worked at the hospital. The day everything changed for her. The man who had accused her of negligence after his younger brother's death. It's him, she murmured, showing the photo to Maria. Elias Thorne. Good heavens. The tech magnate. Maria crossed herself. That man is worth billions. Clara felt breathless. Why would he have helped her of all people? Had he recognized her? And if so, what did he want? Over the next week, Clara tried to forget the whole thing. She managed to get a few days off from the factory to care for Leo, who was recovering quickly. But every night, before falling asleep, Elias Thorne's image returned to haunt her. On Saturday morning, while buying fruit at the nearby market, a voice behind her startled her. "Good morning, Clara." She turned to find herself face to face with Elias. He was dressed more casually than that night, dark jeans and a simple blue shirt, though they were clearly designer clothes. "Mr. Thorne," she replied, surprised he knew her name. "I see the child is better," he said, looking at Leo, who was playing with a rattle in the shopping cart. "Yes, he recovered very well." Clara hesitated for a moment. "Thank you for paying the hospital bill. You didn't have to." Elias seemed uncomfortable being found out. "It was the least I could do." "Why?" she asked directly. "You and I both know who we are. The last time we met wasn't exactly on good terms." Elias looked around, aware they were in the middle of a bustling market. "Can we talk somewhere else? There's a coffee shop on the corner." Clara nodded and followed him to the small cafe. Once seated, with Leo entertained on her lap, Elias spoke. "I've thought a lot about what happened 3 years ago, about how I reacted, about the things I said and did. You destroyed my career," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You accused me of negligence without proof, made me lose my license." "I know," he admitted, "and I can't change that. But when I saw you that night, in the rain," he paused. "I felt I had to do something, perhaps make amends somehow." Clara stared at him, searching for signs of deceit, but found only genuine sorrow in his eyes. "I don't need your charity, Mr. Thorne. Leo and I are fine." "It's not charity," he replied quickly. I don't know how to explain it. I just know I want to help. Without conditions." An awkward silence fell between them. Leo began to babble happily, oblivious to the tension between the adults. "He's a beautiful child," Elias commented, trying to lighten the mood. "His father." "Not in the picture," Clara cut him off. "It's just Leo and me." Elias nodded, respecting her answer. "I understand you don't trust me. You have no reason to. But I would like to try and remedy the harm I caused." Clara looked at him, confused by her conflicting feelings. On one hand, this man had destroyed her professional life. On the other, he had saved her son. "I don't know if that's possible," she replied sincerely. "Some wounds don't heal so easily." "I know," he said with a sad smile. "But at least we could try step by step." Leo stretched his tiny hand towards Elias, who hesitated for a moment before extending his finger for the baby to grasp. The little one giggled, creating a brief bridge between two people divided by a painful past. "One step at a time," Clara finally conceded, promising nothing more than that. "A beginning. Can a past betrayal ever truly be forgiven? Or will it forever cast a long shadow over a fragile new connection?" "What are you doing, Clara? How can you even talk to him after what he did to you?" Maria looked at her with incredulity as Clara prepared Leo to go out. 3 weeks had passed since that encounter at the coffee shop. Elias had been a constant but discreet presence. Messages asking about Leo, small acts of help that Clara reluctantly accepted, and short conversations that gradually grew longer. "People change, Maria," Clara replied, though even she wasn't entirely convinced. "Besides, he's been good to us." "Of course he's good now. But don't forget, because of him, you lost everything," Maria insisted. Clara sighed as she finished dressing Leo. It was true. Because of Elias's accusation, she had lost her nursing license, her reputation, and the career she loved. But something about him seemed different now, as if he genuinely sought redemption. "We're just meeting at the park to talk," she explained. "Leo needs some fresh air." Maria shook her head but said no more. She knew how stubborn Clara could be once she made up her mind. The park was teeming with families enjoying the sunny Sunday. Elias was already waiting on a bench, a coffee in each hand. Seeing her arrive, he offered a timid smile. "I brought one for you," he said, offering her a cup. "Latte with cinnamon, right?" Clara nodded, surprised that he remembered that detail, casually mentioned in one of their conversations. They sat down while Leo played with colorful blocks on the blanket Elias had spread out. The atmosphere was almost peaceful, until Clara decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. "Why did you do it, Elias?" she asked directly. "Why did you blame me?" Elias's face darkened. "I knew this conversation would come sooner or later. My brother was everything to me," he began, his voice rough with remembered pain. "When he died, I needed someone to blame. The report indicated there was a medication error during your shift. But you know that wasn't true," she retorted, trying to keep her voice calm. "Dr. Vance was the one who changed the prescription without updating the records. I just followed what was indicated." "I know now," Elias admitted. "I was blinded by grief. I needed a culprit, and you were easier to attack than a doctor with influence." The words hung between them like invisible daggers. Leo babbled, oblivious to the tension, building and toppling towers with his blocks. "Do you have any idea what you did to me?" Clara's voice trembled slightly. "Not only did I lose my job, I lost my calling, my dignity. No one would hire me after that. That's why I ended up in a factory, sewing clothes for minimum wage." Elias lowered his gaze, unable to bear the weight of Clara's eyes. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I know it's not enough, but I truly am. If I could go back." "But you can't," she interrupted him. "No one can. And now you show up in my life as if you want to fix everything with money and cinnamon lattes." "It's not like that," he protested. "I'm trying to." "Trying what?" she pressed. "To clear your conscience. To feel better about yourself?" Leo, sensing the tension, began to fuss. Clara picked him up, rocking him gently as tears threatened to spill from her eyes. "What I did to you was unfair," Elias finally acknowledged. "And yes, part of me seeks redemption, but it's also true that when I saw you that night, something changed in me. Seeing you fight for your son made me realize how wrong I was about you." Clara looked at him intently, searching for the truth in his eyes. "You can't erase the past with good intentions, Elias." "I know," he said. "I'm just asking for a chance to show you that I've changed." He paused. "Not for me, but for you and for Leo." Clara stood up from the bench, holding her son close. "I need time to think. This is too much." "I understand," he replied, not trying to stop her. "I'll be here when you're ready to talk." Clara nodded briefly and walked away, her heart torn between the resentment of the past and the confusing attraction she felt towards this new Elias. Reaching her apartment, she found Maria waiting with a hot cup of tea, as if she'd anticipated Clara would need it. "How did it go?" the older woman asked, taking Leo so Clara could rest. "We talked about what happened," she replied curtly, collapsing onto the worn sofa. "He admitted he was unfair to me." Maria looked at her with wise eyes as she rocked the baby. "And what are you going to do now?" "I don't know," Clara confessed. "Part of me wants to tell him to go to hell, but another part—" "You're starting to like him," Maria finished. "No, it's just that." Clara stopped, unable to find the right words. "Honey, I've known you since you moved into this building. I know how you look when you talk about him." Maria sat beside her. "Resentment is only poisoning you. Maybe it's time to let go." "How can I let go of something that completely changed my life?" Clara asked, finally letting the pent-up tears fall. "Precisely because it changed your life. Look at what you have now," she said, pointing to Leo, who was smiling in her arms. "This little angel wouldn't exist if your life had continued on the same path." Clara looked at her son and felt the knot in her chest loosen a little. It was true. If she hadn't lost her job, she probably never would have met Leo's father, never would have had her little boy. "I need to be alone," she finally said, taking Leo. "Thank you for listening, Maria." That night, as her son slept, Clara made a decision. She would distance herself from Elias, not out of resentment, but to protect her heart. It was too complicated, too painful. She sent him a simple message: "I need time and space. Please respect that." The reply came almost immediately, I understand. I'll be here if you need me. With her phone off and tucked away in a drawer, Clara promised herself to focus only on her son and on rebuilding her life, far from the ghosts of the past and the sad eyes of Elias Thorne. What if the deepest wounds are healed not by forgetting, but by facing the truth head-on? The silence of the past few weeks weighed heavily on Clara. A month had passed since she asked Elias to stay away. A month spent trying to focus solely on Leo and finding a better job. Yet, every night when her son slept, her thoughts inevitably returned to Elias. One rainy afternoon, while sifting through documents for a job interview, she found her old hospital folder. She hadn't opened it in years. It was too painful to revisit. Someday I'll have to get over this, she murmured to herself, finally opening the folder. Inside were her certificates, evaluations, and the dismissal letter. But as she moved the papers, a sealed envelope fell to the floor. She didn't remember seeing it before. She opened it curiously and pulled out a handwritten letter. Dear Clara, by the time you read this, if you ever do, it will probably be too late. I didn't have the courage to speak up when I should have, and now I carry that guilt. The night young Daniel Thorne died, I was at the station with Dr. Vance. I saw him change the medication without updating the record. When I saw you prepare the treatment as indicated in the file, I wanted to warn you, but the doctor ordered me to be silent. He said he would fix it, but he never did. When the investigations began, he threatened my job if I spoke. I have 3 children to support, Clara. I was a coward, and I'm sorry. Now that I've been transferred to another hospital, I at least wanted you to know the truth. With shame and remorse, Carla Vega. Clara's hands trembled. Carla, the quiet nursing assistant who disappeared right after the incident. Finally, she had proof of her innocence, written and signed. Sitting on the floor of her small apartment, Clara began to weep. They weren't tears of rage or sadness, but of profound relief. For years, she had carried the doubt, wondering if she truly had made a mistake that night. Leo woke from his nap, drawing her attention with small babbling sounds. Clara wiped away her tears and went to pick him up. Your mommy didn't do anything wrong, my love, she whispered, kissing his little head. I always knew it, but now I can prove it. Meanwhile, miles away, Elias stood in front of a marble headstone in the cemetery. Daniel Thorne, beloved son and brother. The inscription read, It's been 3 years, Danny, Elias murmured, laying down a bouquet of white flowers. And I still don't know how to live without you. The cold evening wind ruffled his hair as he stood in silence before his brother's grave. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions. The reunion with Clara, meeting Leo, and then the silence she had imposed between them. I think I was wrong, Danny, he continued. I always looked for culprits so I wouldn't have to face my own pain. Mom and Dad left so long ago that you were my whole family. His voice broke. And when I lost you, I lost myself. A cemetery guard passed nearby, greeting him with a respectful nod. Elias was a frequent visitor. There's a woman, he said after a moment. The same one I blamed for your death. She's strong, determined, and she loves her son like no one I've ever known. He smiled sadly. I think you would have liked her. Elias sat on the bench in front of the grave, feeling the weight of his past decisions. I hurt her, Danny, deeply, and now I don't know how to fix it. He ran a hand over his tired face. She's right to push me away. Who would want someone who destroyed their life? The silence of the cemetery was his only answer. After a while, he stood up, touched the headstone one last time, and walked towards his car. Turning on his phone, he noticed several missed calls and messages from his assistant about meetings and contracts. Normal life continued, indifferent to his inner turmoil. He was about to drive off when his phone vibrated with a message from a number he immediately recognized. I need to see you. Can we meet where it all began? Tomorrow at 8 p.m. Elias's heart pounded. Clara wanted to see him. After a month of silence, he replied with trembling hands. I'll be there. The next night, Elias arrived half an hour early at the 24-hour diner across from Clara's building. The same place where she had pounded on his window that rainy night. He parked in the exact same spot and waited, his pulse quickening. At precisely 8 o'clock, he saw her emerge from the building. She carried a sleeping Leo in a baby carrier against her chest. Elias got out of the car to meet her. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice serene but firm. "Thank you for calling me," he replied, fighting the urge to touch her. Clara took a deep breath and pulled an envelope from her bag. "I found this among my things," she said, handing him Carla's letter. "I think you should read it." Elias took the envelope curiously. As he read, his face shifted from confusion to astonishment, and finally, to pain. When he finished, he looked up at Clara, his eyes moist. He began, but the words refused to come out. "You don't have to say anything," Clara said softly. "I just wanted you to know the truth. Not to make you feel guilty, but because we both deserve to close this chapter." Elias folded the letter carefully and handed it back. "Forgive me," he finally said, with a humility he had never shown before. "I judged you without knowing all the facts. I blamed you because it was easier than facing the pain." Clara nodded, receiving his words without interrupting him. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he continued. "I just want you to know that I'm truly sorry, and if there's anything at all, I can do to make amends." "It's not about making amends," she interrupted him. "It's about moving forward." Leo stirred slightly in his sleep, making soft sounds. Elias looked at the baby with tenderness. "I understand if you don't want me around," he said softly. "I'll respect your decision." Clara was silent for a few moments, as if weighing her next words. "I'm scared," she finally admitted. "Scared to trust, to be hurt again. But I'm also tired of living in the past." She extended her free hand towards him, a small but significant gesture. "I don't know what will happen tomorrow, Elias, but today, right now, I'm willing to try." Elias took her hand gently, as if fearing it might break. It wasn't a happy ending or a fairy tale promise. It was something far more valuable. A new beginning, imperfect and real, between two people marked by pain, but willing to heal together. Can a broken trust ever truly be mended? Or are some bridges simply too damaged to cross? Time moved differently now. The following weeks unfolded with the caution of two people learning to know each other from scratch. Elias and Clara began with small steps. Walks in the park with Leo, casual meals, honest conversations. "I never imagined we'd be like this," Clara remarked one afternoon as they watched Leo play with other children in the park's play area. "Sometimes it still feels unreal." Elias nodded, his gaze fixed on the little one enthusiastically crawling on the grass. "After Daniel, I thought I'd never feel connected to anyone again." Clara glanced at him. In these weeks, she had discovered a different Elias than the cold, powerful man who had shattered her career. This Elias was vulnerable, sincere, even clumsy at times, especially when trying to change diapers or prepare Leo's bottle. "Leo adores you," she said, seeing the baby now crawling towards them, his eyes fixed on Elias. "And I him," he replied with a smile, receiving the little one who was now trying to climb onto his lap. "He's a fighter, just like his mom." That night, after dropping Clara and Leo off at their apartment, Elias drove aimlessly through the city. Something had changed in him. The nightmares about his brother's death, which had tormented him for years, were beginning to space out. The emptiness he felt was slowly being filled with Leo's babbling and Clara's cautious smiles. Meanwhile, Clara tucked Leo into his crib, thinking about how much her life had changed. Maria, her neighbor, was in and out of her apartment, always vigilant, but less wary of Elias's presence with each passing day. That girl should buy a lottery ticket, because with her luck, Maria had commented days earlier when Elias took them to a private clinic for Leo's monthly checkup. From hating him to this? Who would have thought? "It's not that simple, Maria," Clara had replied. "We're still getting to know each other?" Maria giggled. "Oh, you're getting to know each other. I've seen how that man looks at you. And how do you look at him?" Clara had avoided the conversation then, but now, in the solitude of her room, Maria's words echoed in her mind. She was truly developing feelings for Elias. Was it possible to forgive so much pain? The answer came a week later when Elias invited her to dinner. It was the first time they had gone out without Leo, who was left in Maria's care. "You look beautiful," Elias said when he picked her up, with a shyness that contrasted with his usual business confidence. Clara smiled, slightly nervous. It had been so long since she had gone out like this that she felt like a teenager. Elias took her to a small restaurant away from the bustle, unpretentious but with a warm, intimate atmosphere. "I didn't want to take you to one of those fancy places where everyone knows me," he explained as he opened the door for her. "I thought you'd be more comfortable here." "It's perfect," she replied, grateful for his consideration. During dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Their childhoods, their broken dreams, their hopes. Elias told her about his parents, who died in an accident when he was 20, and how he had to take care of Daniel and the family businesses, barely a university student himself. "Daniel was my anchor, my reason to keep going," he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. "When I lost him, I completely lost my way." Clara reached across the table and took his hand. "I understand," she said softly. "When they took away my license, I felt like I had lost everything, until Leo arrived. He saved me without knowing it." Elias squeezed her hand, grateful for her understanding. "And you saved me," he murmured. "That rainy night, pounding on my window, you gave me back something I thought was lost." Their eyes met, and for a moment, all the painful past seemed to vanish. They weren't the powerful businessman and the disgraced nurse. They were just Elias and Clara, two wounded people, learning to heal together. Leaving the restaurant, they walked in silence through the less traveled streets. The night was clear, with stars visible despite the city lights. Without thinking, their hands found each other and intertwined. "Where are we?" Clara wondered after a while, noticing they had walked quite a distance. Elias smiled slightly. "Right where it all began," he replied, pointing ahead. Clara looked and recognized the place. The 24-hour diner across from her building, where she had desperately pounded on Elias's car window that stormy night. Now, under a serene sky, that place held a completely different meaning. "It's funny how life works, isn't it?" she said with a mixture of nostalgia and awe. "Who would have thought that here, precisely here, everything would change for us?" Elias stopped and turned to her, his eyes reflecting the neon lights of the diner. "Clara, he began, but she gently placed a finger on his lips. "You don't need to say anything," she whispered. "Some things don't need words." Elias took her face in his hands delicately, as if fearing she might vanish. Their lips met in a soft kiss, timid at first, but quickly growing more intense, releasing all the feelings contained for weeks. When they parted, Clara had tears in her eyes. They weren't tears of sadness, but of that intense emotion that arises when something broken begins to heal. "This doesn't erase what happened," she said, needing to clarify. "There are still wounds. There are still fears." "I know," he replied, wiping a tear from her cheek. "I don't expect you to forget, or for it to be easy. I just ask for the chance to build something new, something ours." Clara nodded slowly. "Step by step," she said, repeating the words that had been their mantra since he reappeared in her life. "No rush, no demands. All the time you need," Elias confirmed, taking her hands and kissing them with reverence. They walked back to Clara's apartment, where Maria awaited them with a deeply sleeping Leo. The older woman looked at them with a knowing smile but asked no questions. When Elias said goodbye at the door, he did so with another kiss, shorter but just as significant. "Good night, Clara," he whispered. "Thank you for tonight." "Good night, Elias," she replied, watching him walk away down the hall. Closing the door, Clara leaned against it, her heart racing. It wasn't a happy ending, far from it. It was just the beginning of something that could be beautiful or disastrous. But for the first time in years, she was willing to take the risk, to believe that sometimes, just sometimes, second chances are worth it. What if true strength isn't about escaping your past, but about bravely building a new future? hand in hand with someone who understands your scars. Live with you. Clara looked at Elias with surprise. Don't you think it's too soon? For months had passed since that night outside the diner. Their relationship had grown slowly, with the caution of those who knew pain, but also with hope. Elias had proposed that she and Leo move into his penthouse in the bustling city center. Just think about it, Elias insisted, watching Leo now taking his first wobbly steps across the small living room. He'd have more space to play, you'd both be more comfortable and we'd be completely dependent on you, Clara finished, crossing her arms. I don't want that, Elias. I don't need you to rescue us. Elias's face showed bewilderment. It's not about rescuing you. It's about being together. We can be together without me abandoning my independence, she replied firmly. I'm just rebuilding my life. I got the job at the community health center. I'm saving up for a better place. Elias ran a hand through his hair, frustrated but trying to understand. He wanted to give them everything, to protect them, to make up for the past, but he understood that for Clara, dignity and autonomy were priceless. What do you propose then? He finally asked. Clara sat beside him on the worn sofa. Let's do things our way without rushing. She took his hand. Give me time to establish myself, to be self-sufficient. Then we can decide our next step together. Elias nodded slowly. He was a man accustomed to being in control, to solving problems quickly and efficiently. But with Clara, he was learning the value of patience. Agreed, he conceded, kissing her hand. We'll wait as long as you need. And so they did. Clara began working as a health aide at a public health center. It wasn't nursing as before, but it was close to what she loved. Every day, she left early, dropped Leo off with Maria or at daycare, and returned late, tired but satisfied. Elias, meanwhile, reorganized his life to be present without being invasive. He visited Clara and Leo almost daily, but respected her space. Weekends were spent together, sometimes in public parks, other times at his apartment. One Sunday afternoon, while Leo was napping, Elias showed Clara something on his tablet. I found this, he said with some shyness. It's a program for you to get your nursing license back. They have special considerations for cases like yours. Clara took the tablet with trembling hands. It was a professional revalidation program for healthcare personnel who had lost their license for non-criminal reasons. Do you think I could? She began, not daring to complete the sentence. I'm sure, Elias affirmed. And I have contacts who could help with recommendations. Clara returned the tablet to him with mixed emotions. I don't want favors, Elias. If I do it, it has to be on my own merits. And it will be, he assured her. I can only open the door, but it will be you who walks through it and proves your worth. That night, when Elias left, Clara kept thinking about the possibility. What if she could reclaim her calling? What if she could be a nurse again? The next day, after dropping Leo off at daycare, she headed to the center offering the program. She spoke with the director, explained her situation, and, to her surprise, found understanding. She would need recommendation letters, theoretical and practical exams, and a period of supervision. It's a long road, the director warned her. But if you truly want it, it's possible. Clara left with an application in her hand and determination in her heart. That night, when she told Elias, he hugged her tightly, but didn't say, I told you so. He was simply there, supporting her. The following weeks were intense. Clara divided her time between work, Leo, and studying for her exams. Elias did his best to help without interfering. He watched Leo when Maria couldn't. He brought food so she wouldn't have to cook. He stayed silent when she needed to concentrate. One Saturday morning, while having breakfast in Clara's apartment, Leo called Elias in a way that left both of them stunned. Papa! The little one babbled, stretching his tiny hands towards him. Clara and Elias exchanged amazed glances. I didn't teach him that, she clarified, surprised. I know, Elias replied, his voice thick with emotion. He picked up the child and lifted him above his head, making him giggle. Leo repeated, Papa. with more enthusiasm. Looks like he's made his own decision, Clara commented with a mixture of tenderness and nostalgia. That afternoon, while watching Leo play with his blocks, Elias revisited the topic of living together, but with a different approach. What if we looked for a new place, he proposed. Not my penthouse or your apartment. A place that's ours, where we start together. Clara looked at him with curiosity. You'd give up your luxury apartment for a more normal place? I'd give up anything for you too, he replied simply. Clara felt something melt inside her. This man, who had once been her nemesis, was now willing to adapt to her, to respect her terms. A new place sounds good, she finally conceded. But I want to contribute. It has to be something we can both afford. Elias smiled, knowing it was useless to argue about money with her. As you wish. We'll look for something within our reach. And so began a new stage. They found a modest but comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't luxurious like Elias's penthouse, but it had a small garden where Leo could play and enough space for the three of them. Elias reduced his work hours to be more present. Clara continued with her revalidation process. Maria, of course, was a constant presence. At first, she visited daily, as if verifying that everything was all right. Gradually, seeing the genuine dynamic between them, her visits became less frequent, though she remained Leo's official honorary grandmother. Not everything was perfect. There were discussions about money, about Leo's education, about small everyday things. Elias, accustomed to giving orders, sometimes forgot to consult. Clara, with her pride, sometimes rejected help she genuinely needed. But they learned. Day by day, mistake after mistake, they built something that, while not a fairy tale, had the solidity of reality. One night, while having dinner after putting Leo to bed, Clara looked at Elias with a smile. I passed, she simply said. They're giving me my license back next month. Elias jumped up and hugged her, lifting her off the ground. I knew it. I never doubted you. Clara laughed, for the first time without reservations, without that invisible wall she always kept between them. Thank you, she said, looking into his eyes. Not for the contacts or the money, but for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. That night, under the stars in the backyard, they sealed this new chapter with a deep kiss. Not as the end of their story, but as another chapter in a book they continued to write together, with all its imperfections and beauty. The lasting impact. Finding sunshine after the storm. The spring had arrived. The small garden of their new home gleamed with flowers that Clara and Leo had planted together. From the kitchen window, Elias watched his son, because that's what he considered him now, running among the bushes, chasing a butterfly with his increasingly steady legs. Look, Papa, blue butterfly. Leo, almost 2 years old, shouted, his words growing clearer each day. Elias smiled, still amazed when the little one called him Papa. Sometimes he couldn't believe how his life had changed so quickly. The cold executive who lived for work and drowned in painful memories now spent Sundays planting flowers and building sandcastles in the sandbox he had installed himself. What are you thinking about? Clara asked, hugging him from behind. She was wearing the uniform of the hospital where she had started working just a month ago after regaining her license. How lucky I am, he replied, turning to kiss her. How life takes unexpected turns. Clara nodded. If someone had told her 2 years ago that she would end up forming a family with the man who had destroyed her career, she would have laughed bitterly. And yet, here they were, building something authentic day after day. The adjustment hadn't been easy. Elias had to learn to live without excessive luxuries, to share decisions, to respect Clara's boundaries. She, for her part, fought against the pride that sometimes prevented her from accepting help, against the fear of depending on someone, against the ghosts of the past that occasionally returned. Leo needs a bath after playing in the garden, Clara commented, looking out the window. And I need to get ready for my shift. I'll take care of it, Elias replied, kissing her forehead. Go rest for a bit before you leave. Clara smiled gratefully. She worked the night shift 3 times a week, which allowed them to manage with Leo without needing a babysitter. Elias had restructured his company to be able to work mostly from home and spend more time with them. As Elias chased Leo towards the bathtub, the phone rang. It was Maria, who now lived in the apartment Clara had previously occupied. "How's my favorite grandson?" the older woman asked when Elias answered. "Covered in dirt and chasing butterflies," he replied, laughing. "Are you coming for dinner tomorrow? Clara's making your favorite stew." "I'll be there, young man. I wouldn't miss it for anything." Elias smiled. Maria had gone from being Clara's wary protector to becoming an ally, and over time, a part of their strange but beautiful family. That night, after putting Leo to bed, Elias sat on the back porch with a cup of coffee. It was his ritual while waiting for Clara to return from her shift. Sometimes he read, other times he simply contemplated the stars, thinking about how life had blessed him when he least expected it. He heard the car park, and moments later, Clara joined him, sinking tiredly beside him. "Difficult day?" he asked, offering her his coffee cup. "Complicated," she replied, taking a sip. "But good. We saved a 5-year-old boy who came in with acute appendicitis." Elias took her hand, proud of her strength, of her regained calling. "I love you," he said simply. Clara looked at him with that mixture of tenderness and complicity they had built. "I love you too, even if you're an insufferable, stubborn person sometimes." Both laughed. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was authentic. They argued, reconciled, learned together. There were no exaggerated promises or impossible expectations. Just two people building day by day, overcoming wounds, creating something new. One Saturday morning, while having breakfast in the garden, Elias noticed that Clara was unusually quiet. "Is something wrong?" he asked, concerned. Clara took a deep breath before answering. "They offered me the supervisory position in the pediatric department." "That's wonderful," Elias exclaimed, but seeing that she didn't share his enthusiasm, he added, "Or not. It means more responsibility, more hours," Clara explained. "I don't want to neglect Leo or what we're building." Elias took her hands across the table. "I'll support you no matter what you decide," he said sincerely. "But don't limit yourself because of us. We'll find a way." Leo, oblivious to the adults' conversation, played with his cereal, building small mountains on his plate. "Are you sure?" Clara asked, uncertain. "I know how hard it's been for you to adapt to all this, to a normal life, to sharing responsibilities." Elias smiled. "I've discovered I like this normal life," he confessed. "And if that position makes you happy, we'll adapt. I could reduce my hours at the office even more, or hire help for the house." Clara nodded, grateful for his understanding. That same afternoon, she called the hospital to accept the position. Elias hugged her tightly when she told him, genuinely happy for her. "We'll celebrate," he declared. "Tomorrow, we'll take Leo to the zoo, and then the three of us will have dinner together." Clara laughed, caught up in his enthusiasm. The Elias she had known years ago, that cold and calculating man, seemed a distant memory compared to this man who planned family outings with the same passion he once used to close million-dollar deals. Life wasn't perfect. There were good days and difficult days. Sometimes Leo got sick, and they both spent sleepless nights. Sometimes they argued over silly things like who left wet clothes in the washing machine or who should take out the trash. Sometimes the past returned in the form of nightmares or bitter memories, but they had learned to face it together. Elias no longer fled from pain by burying himself in work. Clara no longer isolated herself for fear of being hurt. They had become stronger together. One afternoon, while Leo was napping, Elias found Clara in the garden reading an advanced pediatric nursing textbook. He sat silently beside her, contemplating her, marveling at her determination. "What are you looking at?" she asked, looking up. "You," he replied simply. "The bravest woman I know." Clara closed the book and rested her head on his shoulder. "I don't always feel brave," she confessed. "Sometimes I'm still scared." "Fear is not the opposite of bravery," Elias replied, caressing her hair. "It's part of it." The brave thing is to keep going despite the fear. They stayed like that, in silence, as the sun began to set. They didn't have all the answers. They didn't know what the future held for them, but they had learned to live in the present, to value every moment, to build on solid foundations of respect and forgiveness. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was something better, a real story, imperfect but genuine. A love that had been born in adversity, forged between tears and laughter, built with patience and commitment. A true love. Leo ran across the freshly mown lawn, chasing a colorful ball that bounced whimsically. At 5 years old, he was a whirlwind of energy, with Clara's dark hair and a mischievous smile that made his eyes sparkle. "Look how high, Papa!" he shouted, kicking the ball which soared over the rose bushes. Elias, sitting on the terrace under the shade of an old oak tree, looked up from the report he was reviewing and clapped enthusiastically. "Excellent kick, champ. You'll be a great footballer." Beside him, Clara read a book of pediatric clinical cases, preparing for a conference she would give the following week. For years had passed since she regained her license, and now she was the head of the pediatric nursing department at the very hospital where she had once been unjustly dismissed. "Don't encourage him so much," she joked, without looking up from her book. "He already thinks he's the new Messi." Elias smiled, watching her with that mixture of admiration and love that had never diminished. Time had brought changes for both of them. He had radically transformed his company, delegating responsibilities to be more present at home. She had regained not only her profession but also the self-confidence she once thought lost. The house where they lived was not luxurious, but it overflowed with life. They had decided to stay in that first home they shared, expanding it a little when necessary. The walls were filled with photographs. Leo taking his first steps, his first day of kindergarten, beach vacations, Christmases with Maria, who at 73 was still the official doting grandmother. "What are you thinking about?" Clara asked, noticing Elias's distant gaze. "How far we've come," he replied honestly. "Do you remember that rainy night?" Clara nodded, putting her book aside. Some dates were etched forever. The day she lost her job, the night Leo got sick, the moment she regained her license, and that first time in the rain, when she desperately pounded on a stranger's car window. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you had been parked a few meters further away," she mused. "Or if it hadn't rained that night, or if—" "It doesn't matter what would have happened," Elias interrupted softly. "What matters is that we are here, that we found our way, even if it was the hardest one." Leo came running, his cheeks flushed from exercise and the ball under his arm. "I'm hungry," he announced, climbing onto Elias's lap. "When are you not hungry?" Clara laughed, ruffling his sweaty hair. "Go wash your hands. Food will be ready soon." The boy darted towards the house, leaving behind the trail of energy that characterized him. "It's incredible, isn't it?" Elias commented, following him with his gaze. "To think there was a time when I believed I would never feel joy again." Clara took his hand and squeezed it gently. She knew exactly what he meant. She too had hit rock bottom, had felt life snatch everything away. And yet, here they were, rebuilt but not perfect, with scars that no longer hurt but were part of who they were. The doorbell rang, and Leo shouted from inside, "I'll get it! It must be Grandma Maria." Minutes later, the older woman appeared on the terrace carrying a paper bag with what were surely sweets for Leo, despite Clara's constant medical recommendations. "This garden is beautiful," Maria exclaimed, sitting with them. "How are my favorite boys?" "Working too hard as always," Elias replied, pointing to the papers scattered on the table. "Bah! You two never learn." Maria shook her head with feigned disapproval. "Life is too short to spend it buried in books and numbers." Clara and Elias exchanged a knowing glance. Maria would never change, and that was part of her charm. Leo returned running, now with clean hands and ready for the sweets he knew his grandmother would bring. Maria greeted him with an exaggerated hug, as if she hadn't seen him in months instead of days. As the afternoon slowly unfolded, they shared a simple meal on the terrace. There were no luxuries or extravagances, just the warmth of being together. Leo told fantastic stories from school. Maria recalled anecdotes from her youth. Elias and Clara listened, commented, laughed. A casual observer might think they were an ordinary family. They wouldn't know the abysses they had crossed to get there, the wounds they had healed together, the fears they had faced hand in hand. Remember when you thought you didn't deserve to be happy? Elias whispered to Clara, as they watched Leo show Maria his collection of plastic insects. Did you believe that too? She replied, resting her head on his shoulder. We were both wrong. It hadn't been an easy road. They had stumbled many times, they had argued, they had doubted. But they had never given up. Not on themselves, not on Leo, not on the family they had built against all odds. And as the sun began to descend on the horizon, bathing the garden in a golden light, Clara looked around. At her healthy and happy son, at the woman who had been her pillar in the darkest moments, at the man who had gone from being her worst enemy to her most loyal partner. It wasn't a perfect ending because real life has no endings. It only has days, some difficult, others beautiful, most a mix of both. But they had learned to live them fully, to love them for what they were, imperfect but real. And at that moment, under the sunset light, with Leo's laughter in the background and Elias's hand firmly intertwined with hers, Clara felt that they had finally found their place in the sun. Not the one they had once dreamed of, but a better one, the one they built together, with all their scars, with all their truth. Call to action and final thoughts. What if the most profound moments of transformation begin not with a grand gesture, but with a single, unexpected act of kindness? Friends, if this beautiful tale of love, forgiveness, and second chances touched your heart as it did mine, don't hesitate to leave your comment about which moment in Clara and Elias's story resonated with you the most. Sometimes life surprises us with unexpected encounters, like that rainy night that changed the destiny of our protagonists. Do you believe that forgiveness can heal even the deepest wounds? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this story of imperfect but authentic love, please like this video, share it with your friends who enjoy stories of redemption, and subscribe to the channel for more tales that remind us that everyone deserves a second chance. I'm excited to know who is joining us today. Where in the world are you watching this video from? Tell me in the comments below to let me know how far this story of love and redemption has traveled.